Oh, hello everybody. So Andy dropped out, so we're just
Yeah, I know
the
he just
two
dropped
of
out.
us. He's waiting basically. He said he's waiting somewhere on an airport or to join a
Oh,
conference. Um, yes, so I basically found time to do some stuff on the doc, and I added a couple of things that we have been talking about over the last weeks. So basically, the beginning of the proposal thing all still the same with the motivation and all the stuff, and I added. This sounds like Andy is back, huh?
well,
This
Asa's here.
Asa is here. Hello, Asa.
Hello,
Hello. We are today
how are you?
very good. We are a small fancy group in the moment, um, but we'll see. We'll still be able to do something. I was just going through and said I got a couple of additions to the document that I was able to do. Basically, I added most of the stuff that we've been talking about over the last weeks. And I marked them here in blue in the doc, so it should be easy for everybody to see which new stuff is there. One thing was the thing about the co-lead we've been talking about, so that basically the committee members will select one of the four reviewers to be the co-lead, and the co-lead will act on behalf of the committee lead in cases of sickness or holidays. And I think also last week we talked about if the co-lead would leave, then if the lead would leave, the co-lead would continue the operation and organize an election. Um, and another thing that I added basically was the stuff. If this thing would come to an end and somehow the first year would be over, um, I think this we talked about this already. The only thing would be that let's assume the committee wants to continue. I think it needs to be prepared in advance. Yeah, so you can't wait until the end of the 12th month and then just uh, put up a vote because this would kind of halt the operation. So I think it would make sense that a decision, if the committee would can continue, or if anything else would be in place, needs to be in place 1 month before this whole thing stops because it will take time. So let's say the community votes to not continue this whole thing, then it will take time to basically shut down all the operation, take care that the rest of the grants can be distributed to the projects that might still have open milestones, and also transfer all funds that are left in the multisig wallet back to the community and stuff like this. So this is what I added here.
It's a good idea.
Um,
Do you think 1 month? Do you think 1 month's enough?
that's the question. The other thing is basically, let's say you do 3 months, yeah. That would be something of too early. Um,
Yeah, It might be 2 months or 1.5 months. I don't know. We can leave it at
yeah,
1 month, I
yeah.
guess.
Let's
Yeah.
let's see what when we put it in the governance forum, maybe somebody picks up and we can discuss things. I think
Yeah.
basically you can close down operations in a month of this thing. It's not
Yeah.
like
Good.
super
Yeah.
big. There might still be some stuff left over to do, tax and whatever kind, but if it's like
Oh
a
yeah,
little bit,
that will definitely be months
yeah,
afterwards for
yeah.
sure.
But
Yeah.
the good thing is if it's integrated in the Swiss association, so also then this would be very likely tasks that could be fulfilled by the Tangle Ecosystem Association. Yeah, that they might have a tax person there that could just basically fill, and there's anyway going to be some paper stuff to do then.
Mm-hmm.
That likely would be part of the Swiss Verein thing to shut down the operation of this thing. But that's
Also,
mm, mm.
should we add? I mean, it's not something you really like to plan about, but should there be some finances secured to be able to shut it down successfully? I don't know. You got to think about that, right? Because attorneys
Mm,
don't work for free no matter what. So,
yes, I mean there will there would be costs there. I think this
I
is
don't know.
something we
Yeah.
would have to figure out, basically how much it would cost to shut down the
Hmm.
thing in Switzerland. And
Yeah.
yeah, would have to have this either be I mean it's available, yeah. So the Tangle ecosystem thing very likely will still hold some of those funds from the
Hmm.
community. So, but it's maybe something to note. I'll add that here. Costs
Yeah, because shutting it
of
down, you're gonna need this. This is gonna be.
operational
Yeah. Mm.
shutdown to be secured. Um, yeah, this somehow needs to be something we need to think about potentially. I mean, let's hope
I know it's not
there is
something you
no
really
need
want to
for
consider.
shutdown, but
Yeah.
you never know.
Right.
Yeah. Rest of the stuff, this stuff I left, compensation left, funding priorities also, guiding principles. We've been talking a lot about this, all
Hmm.
unchanged. Um, then about the financial stuff. We also talked about this, that we would have, let's say, lower tiers if the market cap of Shimmer would be pretty low. Before I had always this thing like a treasury value here inside, but in the end, I think it makes much more sense because the treasury value always changes. Yeah, after 3-4 months, you have paid out funds, and then it would be, if you would say, okay, we only can fund something if there is still $1 million in the budget.
Hmm.
Basically, after a couple of months, you will be below this. So I think it makes much more sense to make it based on the market cap of Shibor. Assuming we would get 15% of the tokens into the budget for 1 year, then if we are below 50 million US dollar, I think we talked about this, there wouldn't be any funds distribution because this would mean basically there would be only like something 750K, and operational costs for the reviewers and things like this is already quite something. So let's assume we are above 50 million market cap. We would go with the low tier values for the tiers. So I marked this in red. This would be like 5 to 25K, 25 to 100K, and the biggest tier would be maximum 100 bis 250 till 250K. If even this would be something
Hmm.
um, proposed. But if we would be above $100 million, so basically where we are currently hanging around, we would go with the normal tiers of 5 to 50, 50 to 200, and potentially large tiers up to 500K. But this, of course, very complex and special things that might be possible. Um, One thing I've been looking through some other grant programs over the weekend, and what I found we had here the requirement that only, let's say, for a low tier thing, that only one person of the team would have to do KIC.
Hmm.
Um, but I found in several others they really require, especially for higher tier, that every member of the project team that receives funding does KIC, which I find kind of a logical thing. Yeah. Otherwise, they would they send somebody, yeah, that maybe is not really part of the team, kind of a disposable, if they want to trick you. Yeah. So I think it may make sense that for such big budgets up to 200K, the team would be KIC'd, and
The
basically
team receiving the award,
the
right?
receiving team, yes,
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
project team. Yeah. If there are 4 people, why should only one of them do KIC? for such an amount of funding.
Oh yeah, because you could
Yeah.
be gaming it that way.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
start to let's say you just employ somebody for a week,
Sure.
KIC this guy, and then is never seen again. We don't want to have trouble with this. That's the only thing I added here. But
Do they all just getting back to
mm,
that, do all the other systems that you've evaluated when they evaluate the lower tier awards, the
yeah,
5,000
yeah.
area, do they all require
They do
one
it
person to make the
no,
awards, or do they
not
require two
some
people? Or?
some really up to what I've like Aave up to 25K. They do not require any KIC. Others then require minimum one person, and then the more
Okay.
money, the more people. So it's a bit mixed. Some
Okay.
do it, some not. Yeah, I know
But
also.
also just a question as far as
Yeah.
the changing away from KYC to just giving out the awards, right? So for the small amounts, do they all just allow one person to be
Um,
to reward that, or do they require
Also
like two
different,
people at least
also
to look at
different.
everything?
Some want the whole team for everything. Some want only one. Some don't care at all. It's a little bit an unclear view out there. I think we just should just go with what we feel makes most sense. I don't think you need for $5,000. You don't need everyone to do a KIC. I mean, alone the KIC costs
Not
will.
KYC. I
Yeah.
was talking about just awarding it, right? Like so,
You
if
mean
it if
you mean from the reviewer side?
yes.
Yeah. Um, Depends also. Aave does it like this, so that they have basically for this really low stuff until for them it's until 20K. This is just one reviewer. Um,
Hmm.
Bankless does it different, but they have this stuff beforehand in the forum already, where basically the community is already a little bit involved in the approval
Hmm.
process. Um, by You don't find much for the others. It's always kind of this the committee decides, but you don't know how much of them. I can assume that for some things, especially in busy grant programs, and they have like 5 6 reviewers, and there's like 5 6K thing. It's not something that you will have to make a huge committee
Yeah.
meeting around. Yeah, depending really, I
I
think,
had
on
an
the thing.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an idea on this. Just I was thinking that okay, we're starting off
Mm-hmm.
scratch, right? So I'm wondering if we should because we have to assume like we have to kind of look at this as going through a beta cycle, right? Like we've never done it. There'll be mistakes. This will be the first time process, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if we should have at least a minimum set of eyes um, on like the first 5, 10 grants that are issued,
Yeah.
or maybe we should have everybody participate in it so that they develop a general consensus of the
Mm-hmm.
process and also just kind of best practices on hey,
Yeah.
this is how we evaluate it, and kind of like they learn together, and then maybe like after determined number of
Mm-hmm.
awards, they say, okay, now we can start breaking it down to
Yeah.
twos or ones or whatever. I don't know. It's just an idea.
Yeah. It's a one thing maybe because there will be this, or there's planned to have this let's say public committee meeting. Basically,
Hmm.
um, this would be one point where basically every one of the reviewers might have a look over that. But I mean, I think it's really something that maybe automatically will happen. I mean, if you're a reviewer and you have a proposal and you're like, you very likely will anyway chat and talk about these things with the others and hear different opinions on it. Um, but yeah, we might
I'm not trying to make
add
more
something like no,
laborious, but I mean,
it's
it's
yeah,
just, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it might make sense. Maybe
Just
it's a
seems like at
dynamic
least a
thing.
minimum we should have two sets of eyes on everything in the beginning,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah, yeah. Um, yes, then because this only would be for us, it would be only in the thing. We only have one reviewer for this thing up to 5,000. Um,
Yeah.
but I make a comment here that we should potentially add
I mean, I don't know what
start
everybody else thinks. I mean, I could be off
for
base, so.
okay. Diddle-diddle-dit. Then last time we talked about this potential if projects are not really happy what they have been declined. So I just added this thing here that all decisions if funds are given out to something when it's be published that there will be no naming of who basically was the grant reviewer so
Yeah.
that there are no complaints or kind of
No
attacks,
doxing of
no
members.
doxing. Yeah, it's always coming out as a decision of
Committee
the
decision.
of the grant committee. Nobody gets told how many reviewers, if or how they voted to, or stuff like that. It's always if there is a decision taken by the committee, then it's by the whole committee.
Yeah, it's a
Doesn't
black
matter.
box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't matter who was behind that because it's like I think it's not a good feeling for a reviewer also to know, okay, if I decline this, but it's a super great community project. They have a big follower group and something. It's a shitty situation. You don't want to be in the
Yeah.
situation to say, okay, they know I declined it, and then I will have my Discord DMs filled with angry
The
followers
hate.
and stuff like this. Yeah. Um, one thing I completely added new today is this whole thing about the application process. Basically, I took this from Aave and from Polygon grant program. And this would be something I know JD also did this already, but I didn't find his notion. So I just put up stuff that would basically this would be a kind of application form, yeah, for a project, what they need to fill in, yeah, their application details like the name and their email addresses, the team, how many team members they have, details per every member, yeah. So write about every team member, about education and work experience, and provide links to relevant portfolios, recent work, stuff like this, maybe publications or whatever the team members have done. So basically, the grant committee has a full picture of who is part of this team and can verify and can look them up and see if this seems to be a legit and an experienced team. Then, of course, everything about the project, idea, use cases, process goals, and how it helps the ecosystem, name, links to website, Twitter, and all these things, requirements, the deliverables of the project, and milestones. And this is, I think, always the more detailed, the better. People put up here. Um, then goals, what is basically the goal and the plan to achieve with this process? Define milestones. Depending on the tier, we have defined that some tiers require 2 milestones for the tier 2 already. The first tier doesn't require any milestone. Then we have here 2 milestones. And for the bigger tiers, we require 3 milestones. And so the teams then need to define which milestones they want to reach and also how much funding they would need to reach this milestone. So they need to be pretty clear in their budgeting and in their funding request. They need to know what they want to do, and they need to know what it will cost them. Yeah. So
Mhm.
because yeah, still the reviewer and the committee will then need to come together and think about if these are realistic things. But I have something a little bit below where this would make it a little bit easier, maybe. Then the whole breakdown of the funding, how much money would they need in total, and also explain on what these things are spent. Yeah, so let's say they request 150K. You really need to break down, okay, this is like 10K goes to legal costs and 15K goes to marketing, and our developer for 2 months will cost this and that, so that you have a really nice breakdown of where is this money going to and what part of the project is creating these costs. Then our point about open source, yeah, I think we are all clear that we would require projects to be open source, and so I think we should already ask them in the application process if they would be okay and willing to publish this whole thing as an open source project. Details like we talked about, that potentially when they are still in development, they might only give access to the repo for the reviewer to check through and only publish it when they're completely finished. So that's not required to have a full open source, open development until they are finished, but also they would only receive, I think, maximum 50% of the grant until the code is completely open sourced. And rest would be other information like Telegram, Discord handles. If they would have a white paper, if they have a pitch deck, if they have a GitHub repo, and all these things they should put up there. And maybe also they should categorize themselves, will make it easier for the grant reviewers. Potentially you will have some people that are more knowledgeable and better in reviewing stuff for education and marketing and things like this, and others are more into DeFi and NFT things, so then you have easy categorization for the reviewers in what to look. And then basically, this is something I really liked, and I have to say I blatantly stole this mostly from Polygon DAO. And I was basically happy that I found it, that they published it. So this is their scoring system that they use for every grant that comes in. They have this basically point system where this is basically the worksheet for the reviewer
Hmm.
to evaluate if a project basically is eligible for funding. And what I changed some things to make it a little bit more related to us, but basically I really like this whole thing. So they have basically some scoring qualities. They have 4 points for something that is outstanding, 3 points for good, for okay, 2 points, need improvement 1 point, and missing or something 0. And in the end, they have 5 of these categories, and you can reach maximum 20 points. And first thing, of course, is what they ask is for relevance. And so basically, if you want to have outstanding, then it really needs to be very relevant, and the project needs to be exclusively building on Shimmer. And also, what I really like is they require that you already have an MVP or something showable ready. Yeah, so just a white paper and an idea will never receive the highest scoring points here. You need to present already something that you have been making before you can come and receive and get high points here. Yeah? But of course, it goes lower
So,
than, yeah, Andy?
sorry, yeah. So if it's relevant, and it has an MVP, but does that MVP have to be ready, like Shimmer ready, or is it an MVP that could be something like we already have an
I think it's,
established business with customers
yeah, I think it's,
that
this is open.
we
There
want
is,
to like port?
yeah, it shouldn't be, it should just show that the team is able to to deliver a working, functioning version of this thing. It might even be that this MVP is something that they have built on another chain. Yeah. So if it's an EVM compatible thing and they are already live with this thing on Phantom or something, or they have built it already on Phantom and want to bring it over and say, okay, we don't like Phantom anymore. We're going completely to switch over with our product to there. Then this would fall into this thing. It's a great product, and it has already a working solution somewhere else. Doesn't need to be relevant or absolutely focused on Shimmer or IOTA, I would say. Yeah, and of course,
Thank you.
yeah, stuff like the less relevant and also the less developed the thing is, the less points you basically get. Yeah, and stuff like, okay, project treats Shimmer as one of many and doesn't seem to be really interested and loyal. And this is already comes into the area where you think, okay, this might be only they might only looking for a quick cash grab and just do some easy, cheap fork of their thing, but they're not really behind the idea of working together with the IOTA community on this thing. And of course, then you will just give them less points in this thing and make it a little bit harder for them to get a grant. Then funding model. I also like this very much. What they laid out here, that you have realistic expectations on your milestones and a clear plan, basically, where how you reach these milestones. And yeah, so let's say the less clear and the less really planned and structured a team appears, and the less points also they get here, especially if it's around funding. If they don't know really what they're going to do with the budget and where they're going to spend it, most likely it will be a little bit of a mess. And then if you give them 70K and they kind of just have a over the thumb idea of for what they need this money, wouldn't be good. So the more structured and the more properly budgeted a team is, then also the better you would score them here. Execution stuff. Also, again, how far are they already in the development? Have they already done something, or do they only have a website and a paper, or do they have already some code, or even, like I said, a product that is already working? And then the team quality, yeah. So this is really important here. They really require that the whole team is doxed and KIC'd and can be easily verified over socials and stuff like this. I really like how they described it here. So the team is high quality, seems capable and trustworthy, and ready to take action. And everything that is below that, yeah, team is somehow suspicious and hard to verify, will get them less or 0 points. This is something I was taking.
One
Yeah.
question. What do we do if we say, well, the team is not doxed, really doxed, but it's also rather known. So take somebody like CFB in his early days. You knew that he had his identity in the space, but he wasn't doxed when he did NXT, for example.
Yeah, but I don't think that you should give anybody a lot of money without having them KIC'd and the identity revealed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
That's also I think for tier 3 it's required,
Yeah.
or was it tier 2? I'm
Tier
not sure.
two, tier two already.
two.
That minimum one or the team lead has done KIC, and the rest, of course, yeah. I mean, doxed would mean kind of known, yeah. So they're not completely anon. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
always
maybe we
yeah.
should change that to Maybe in the 2 we should change it to somewhat known instead of doxed.
I don't know. It's like this is like the more revealed, the better, or the more points you get.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So if
Yeah, and
they
I
if they
think that's also a bit a
yeah.
double requirement
Mm.
because we have it as a requirement for granting as well.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, of course, this is something I think for like a tier one. If there is no requirement for KIC, then basically you don't need to come up with these points. Yeah, you don't need to dox a whole team for a grant of 5K. If it's not a requirement of the tier itself, if they only ask for $2,500 for attending an hackathon or something, of course, then you won't need to go through this whole scoring system. But for bigger things, I think it makes really some sense.
I would say also from a US perspective, we would
Mm,
want to KYC every single person on the team, because if we accept a project where somebody is not KYC'd and they come out as a bad actor, it actually creates a systemic liability from us.
mm.
So uh, if if the team is operating in the United States, I think that entire team should be doxed or revealed. KYC.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I think we have to ask somebody from legal if this is really, if this is a requirement for the US, then we need to add it anyway. Yeah, if that might be something that we will really have to ask. Actually, we'll have to ask very likely a lawyer from the US or something like that to get a clear opinion there. If there would be any risk to not to give money to people that are, I mean, if one of the team is KIC'd, wouldn't that be enough? Then this one would be the receiver. But I don't know. We were really,
If,
yeah.
if they are working together as a team, and if
Mm-hmm.
it's either a DAO, which is going to be considered a partnership, they
Mm-hmm.
would all have to be KYC. If they're operating as essentially a single business and they're employees and they have W-2s, then they all have to be KYC. If
Okay.
they're 1099s, they might not have to, but for the, let's say, unknownness of crypto in
Mm-hmm.
these days, they should probably KYC.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I will forward this to Anya, and I'm pretty sure and then we would have to add this as an US specific requirement, also for really low fundings. Um, okay, one other thing was this year, so that basically when you come um, to the points in the end. And in the so for let's say for tier 4, which would be our highest tier for funding, that would in the optimal solution would mean that a team asks for 500K. Um, it would require that from all these things, basically, they reach 17 points from the 20. So they would have to have mostly a 5, and only in 2 of them they would have to, mostly the 4 points, and only in 2 of them or 3 of them would be required, would be allowed to have only 3 points. But as soon as there is a team that has only 1 point in one of those things, they have no chance to get a grant for 500K. And then the lower tier up to 200K would need 15, and tier 1 and 2 also, even for the low ones, should be something like 13. I mean, these numbers, we have to maybe go through them in detail, maybe play them a little bit through for different situations. I took this mainly from, like I said, from Polygon. They do it like this. Even for lower tiers, Polygon is not giving out so high grants, but basically will require most of their teams to have minimum 15 to receive anything. So I thought this was quite strict, but also looks quite successful what they're doing. So I think it's a good thing, yeah. So you require basically, it's also a great way for the community to know that all these things will be checked and documented, and that money is not just flowing out of the window to shady projects or shady teams that nobody knows and they just disappear. Yeah. But they also say that, of course, there might be some projects where they use this as guidelines. Yeah, but and if there is a project, like you said, and they absolutely don't want to or they cannot KIC because it's like a DEX and they would put themselves into legal and stuff like this. There might be situations where the committee then can decide to even if there's 1 point missing or something. Yeah, it's like not a full law of the thing. It's more of a guideline. But we'll have to think about if we want to, how exactly we want to implement this. But I wanted to put it in because I think it's great to have this thing. We might want to change some certain aspects of it, but basically it's I anyway wanted to do something like that, so I was really happy that I found it and could take inspiration on that. Okay, what else did I
Open
add?
source, baby.
Hmm? Andy?
Open source, baby.
Open source, we have it in.
No, 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 no. I was just saying you could take it because it was open source.
Yeah,
But
that's the good thing. I mean, yeah, it should be open. I mean, it's not code, and you don't find things like this in most. Yeah, like from Aave is also kind of open source, but you don't find these things. I'm sure they have it, but they don't publish it. So I was pretty happy to find it. Basically, you all should have a look at what Polygon DAO is doing. They're doing really cool stuff. I basically over the whole weekend looking into them and been in their Discord a bit. Um, they're doing really, really good in their also in their grant program. I mean, you see how successful Polygon went over the last year or 2 years, something like this. It also has something to do with the way they handle grants. It's really nice. Um, what else? The rest is mainly unchanged. This is also something we talked about in the last meeting, that once we have approved a project for funding, then the whole budget will already be transferred or converted into stable coins, so that we don't run into the risk of big the prices changing a lot, and then basically you have to tell a project, okay, we kind of run out of funding for you because the market crashed. Yeah, so it's always a safer thing. Once there's really an approval and there are like 2 milestones and you know this thing will need 2-3 months until it's finished, already have the whole funding available in stablecoin so that whatever happens, this project will be paid out. Because basically you go into an agreement with such a project and they will start working for the community on such a thing and rely on a payout. You can't basically tell them in the end, yeah, sorry, thank you for developing, but we can't pay out the rest because market crashed 50% and we don't have any funds left. Yeah. Good. I think this has been the things that I have added or changed from the last time. Um, yeah, anything from your side, guys? Any questions? Any remarks?
No, those are good ads. That was a great find. I'm
Yeah,
excited to just get this in the community's
yeah,
hands and
I
have them,
was really
the wider
happy.
community, right?
Um,
So
basically, wait, I dropped the link here. I think um, you should all really look into Polygon DAO. and Polygon Village. It's pretty cool what they are doing. I mean, of course, they have like masses of funding available, so it's not like us. They have, I don't know, I have no idea. Polygon, I'm sure they have like a treasury and they have some VCs. They have a couple of hundred, $400-500 million lying around, and they've been able to build up this whole thing over the last, I think, 12 months or something like that. But it's a pretty powerful tool. They have a lot of great ideas. Have also a lot of these things, like they give out a lot of vouchers for stuff like that. It's also something that we should think about later on, instead of giving grants, to give vouchers for code audits, for legal review, for stuff like this. So they brought in a lot of partners into their DAO, and maybe I'm pretty sure they made some good contracts with them and told them, okay, we're gonna bring you 50 customers a year. Give us a good rate, and we give out vouchers and for, I don't know, all kind of good stuff. So they have really some cool ideas there, and I'm sure we can copy some of their ideas into our system once it would be up and running. Yeah.
Did you
Hey,
see
Philo. I
today's?
actually,
Oh,
sorry, Andy, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say today Google announced its process with Coinbase. So I'm pretty sure if we approach somebody like Microsoft to provide discounts to Azure or Amazon or AWS, we might be able to get some discounts that we can provide to the community.
Yeah, stuff like this is always good. If you come, it's always a good thing. If you come as a big thing, you probably will be able to make some really good deals for a lot of things, also in crypto. Yeah, yeah. Overclocked?
Yeah, I had a question about the nomination process. Actually a two-part thing that I wanted to ask people what they thought about was, can somebody nominate another person besides themselves? Like, can I nominate somebody?
I would say yes, of course. Why not?
Okay,
Um,
so if somebody could nominate another person,
mm,
what does everybody think about people who have been like banned from certain IOTA platforms that have kind of like gained a following like outside of the official like server or channels and stuff? And the reason why I bring that up is because I know that, there are certain people who got banned from Discord,
mm,
and they've gained like, kind of people who think that, they were mistreated or something, or fairly or unfairly treated. But I feel like a lot of the community people, they're not really aware of all the things that took place, before the ban happened. They only get like pieces of information, right?
mm.
And I was just curious because like, I'm wondering if somebody nominated, like they wouldn't even have to nominate themselves, because I feel like if somebody else nominated them and then they got enough votes to become, a committee member or something, what people thought about that.
Let me say like this. I don't think that whoever was banned from our Discord, and I know, of course, a couple of people that come into mind. None of them will have a chance to reach a proper amount of followers. Even doesn't matter how loud they think, and also I think they would never ever, because they have not, they don't even have the ambition to do something good for the community. Yeah, so they don't have the time. They won't spend their private time for something like this. They wouldn't even sit into such committee, and I never think that there would be any chance for them to be voted into such a committee by a vote of the token holders. Yeah. Maybe they could make some noise in their own little Discord and get a couple of people behind them, but in the end, for the larger community, our nobody knows them. Yeah, it's just like people from the past that spin up discussions and stuff like this. But I have no fear that this would even be a risk. Because if anybody looks up their history and does a couple of serious checks, and of course then also a lot of people would speak up against such nominations, and this is not something that would go just unvisible and unchecked. And I trust our community that they will make a very easy and the right decision in this regard. So.
Okay, well, I mean, I understand the point. Perhaps we could throw some safeguards in there. One thing I was thinking of just is that we've agreed, right, that every member has to be KYC, like any one of the the board has, the granting committee is going to be KYC'd. So that in itself may,
none of them
make
wants
it a little bit more difficult. Yeah,
wants
will
to
want to be outed,
reveal
right?
one of them.
Yeah, their identity. Right.
Wants to reveal their identity. So I don't see any risk that they would even bother
But
to do something.
I don't know. There might be another thing that we could do is if you, well, I don't know. I don't know what you think of overclock, but are you thinking of like putting in a question? Have you ever been banned from the IOTA Discord? Because in one way that could make us, look deeper, but not sure that they would ever answer correctly anyhow. And
I think like maybe I agree with Philo. I think the chances are probably slim, but I also get surprised at the support that they get back in Discord. Like whenever there's
I know what you're
dramas.
talking about. Yeah, I'm in those other servers. I see it. Yeah. So
and I don't want to name names, but there are people who are very pro IOTA who are kind of really against IOTA, but they still get a lot of support from the community. So I don't know why that is. But I feel like a lot of community members, they're not aware of everything that went down before they got banned. They were aware of like they're aware of things that they think happened, So
I mean, if this would then happen, then in the end, somebody needs to tell the truth. Yeah, it's like I have no problem to bring up some Discord logs or whatever happened and basically reveal the reasons why those people are not part of the community anymore. Yeah, but like I said, the chances that they even would bother to do something like this are pretty slim.
the thing is, I agree with you, Philo. I think the chances are slim that they would do it. But my only slight concern is that somebody else would nominate them.
Oh, so
You
I
know what
mean,
I mean?
in the end, nominating somebody else is kind of stupid because the nomination process, would be something that it's not just like, okay, I nominate Overclock to become a committee member. This is not how the nomination process would work. The nomination process will work that somebody has to write a lot of things about themselves. Reasoning. You can't make a post that says I nominate this person because you don't have any information about this person. You basically actually you technically cannot nominate somebody else. Maybe we just shouldn't allow it in this so that really because
Do you have to KYC during the nomination process?
no
Not during the nomination process.
no.
There's a lot of weird people like on the fringes of our community. I know you very well.
I think you
I just
care too much about them. This is such a small fraction compared to the big amount that really cares about what's going on. I wouldn't really bother a lot about that. Yeah. But maybe we should really. I think we haven't really talked about the nomination thing. This was something I wanted to bring up on the next one after this was out, because I hadn't time really to work on that. But I mean, it's no problem. Let's put in something that you can't nominate somebody else, and then whoever wants to step up would really need to go public and dox himself to be really
So,
visible. Yeah.
how about, okay, so there's
Mhm.
a fee associated with KYC, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, should applicants have to pay who pays that fee?
How much is that fee? What's the range of that fee?
It's something like $150 or something like that, usually.
That's definitely a barrier.
I mean, this
Yeah, I'm
is
thinking of that as a
yeah.
barrier to entry, right? But then it's for if somebody, it's kind of like, okay, you apply for a job, right? And
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
turned down.
If
But
somebody
if you
is
are KYC'd successful, but
yeah,
you just don't get the
no,
job, right?
you
Then
can
what
only
happens, right?
KIC the people that have been voted into the committee. Yeah. So or basically because we also have then people that would be like on a waiting list or something. So let's say we have 5 committee members or 4, and then I would basically require for the follow-ups if they want to be part of the list that basically like the runner-ups that potentially if somebody gets ill or we need more people to get moved in, that they also then would need to be required to have KIC to even be on the list of potential candidates for
So I don't know that we've
next seat.
added this verbiage,
Yeah, we
but it
should
might be
add.
important.
Yeah.
But we should also add verbiage that successfully KYC'd, right? Because
Yeah.
right,
Yes. Yeah. I
you
know
could,
what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. Because if somebody comes back as a train wreck, right, or doesn't get approved,
Yeah,
that
of
could be
course. Yes,
problematic.
if there's some problems in the KIC process, then even if the person is voted in but refuses or whatever to do
If you don't get KYC, you don't get in the door. That's
yeah,
it. Like
that's it.
no, you just got to be that way.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it that way, it opens up the organization to
Mhm.
lawsuits and stuff, I would think. So
Yeah, that was something we need to put in the verbiage of the process pretty good. Yeah.
Is the KYC some firm that IOTA is using that we're going to use, or is it something that
There are many different providers.
there's a
We
lot
have,
of different ones.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to check one. I know Suniverse is using one. The IOTA Foundation is using another one. We'll have to.
You can shop them. I mean, you just Google
Yeah.
it. It's a crazy, right? But you know, it might be good to go with ones that are known that have been used before. Just
Yeah. Yeah, a reputable KIC
yeah.
thing. Don't know. There are many. Yeah. Potentially we use the one. We can use the one IOTA Foundation uses or one of the 25 others out there in the world. They all basically do the same thing. And yeah.
Some of them cover most, like, well, as you know, in our early days, right? Our KYC process, some of them don't cover every region. So you got to just make sure that they cover the
Worldwide.
we probably will have to have different ones
Different
depending
ones
upon,
for
based upon
locations.
if they cover
Yeah.
that part of the world, right? Sometimes they don't cover
Yeah.
all regions.
Yeah, but I think generally the cost for this is something that the treasury, the community needs to pay, clearly. But then also only on the ones that are successfully voted in and agree to do this. Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question about the open source. I remember I read something posted by Digital Soul on the forum about it's like the projects who are open source or at least to the committee would only get grants or would be preferred, get preferential rating to get the grants.
No, we have the requirement that all funded projects must in the
Be
end
open source.
be open source. Yeah. Here we have projects in development must allow the grant committee to access any private repos and review. These projects will only receive 50% of the proposed budget until they fully open source their code. Yeah, so they
So
can.
what
Yeah.
so what happens to the projects like what is it, TFT or like Rusty Robots, let's say, right?
Hmm.
Where they're basically I'm just assuming this. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's what they're doing, but I'm just using it as a hypothetical and them as examples.
Mhm.
So let's say that they're using code that is already open sourced, right?
Yeah.
Because they're, DeFi is nothing original, but the main the main point of their project is content or owning some part uh,
Hmm.
ownership of some league or something like a soccer team, right? Or Rusty Robots, they're gonna ask for money. Let's say, just as an example, let's say they want grants to produce music or to
Hmm.
get licensing for music. Let's say, right?
Yeah.
So does that have anything to do with the committee, the fund, or do they just own that outright if they get the funds and they?
I think that's a good. I think it's a good
It's a good
question
question.
because
Yeah.
because well, take the scenario of hey, somebody just says, okay, I and a couple people want to start developing a meetup program that can go around, right, and set up meetups. Well, you're not writing code, right? And so that would never hit. It just doesn't even apply, right? It's you're developing
Yes.
presentation materials and such, right? So, and guides and so forth. So
Yeah.
that doesn't go open
Yeah.
source. But I think if there's any code that's developed, then I think it needs to have. The answer is yeah. That code needs to be open
Yeah.
sourced.
But it's a good
I
point. Like,
do.
yeah, go.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I think there is something that I've experienced. Right, is you have the requirement that you need to turn in your code to get your funding, but you also are concerned about competitors that can just take your code and immediately go to market with what you built, right? So you want to have the opportunity to go and use your what you've built before the competitors can kind of like use your good works and your brain power without you having any kind of window of being able to use it freely before the competitors are let loose, right, on your code. So I wonder if we should come up with the ability to, yes, we still maintain that you have to open source stuff, but that open source is agreed upon with the committee, and maybe even in the proposal that's submitted that yes, we agree that we need to turn over our code, but we want to, as part of our agreement, to say, look, we want this code in escrow kept in a private repository for 6 months to a year or whatever the time frames agreed upon, where that code's not released to the general public for a specified period of time, so that it gives them, the company that
Yeah,
built it, right,
they
a
could
window to
they could
be
do
free.
they could do it, but then they would have to wait for the rest of the funding until it's open source.
You
I mean,
think?
yeah, I mean, this is what
Well,
we have
what I'm
Actually,
in
saying
the
is
actually,
like
rules.
well,
they could actually deliver the code, but it would just be put in and it's approved by the team, right? But
Yeah,
it's
but
not released from the team to the
I mean that's a bit of a
outwardly.
of a,
Yeah.
of a philosophy thing. I think. I mean, why
Well, is it? I'm
open?
still.
Yeah, why not open source it? I don't. I mean, if you are good, and then you don't have to fear that everybody is copying. If you're really good, look like Uniswap and all these things. They got successful and they operated open source all the time. Yeah. I don't know if it's really something that
Did
teams
they? I mean, do we
need to
know
fear.
that they operated it of open source from day one, or
Yeah.
did they open source it afterwards? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you
No, I
always hear
mean,
about the lore, but you
look,
never know what actually happened in the early
I,
days,
I'm
right?
I'm
to me,
also the
to me, this question about the open. Actually, this wasn't my original
Mhm.
question, but this is kind of interesting. But my take on that is, whenever I see development on GitHub and it's open source, a lot of it is not really useful because the project never finishes. And I'm not like just talking about IOTA. It's like every project that
Mhm.
I go to into the server, to different discords and stuff,
Mhm.
I see that even if they're open source, it's kind of tricky because the project is always developing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
of course, it's never
yeah, so
finished. Yeah, but you
yeah, so
can.
even if somebody took that open source at the point that at the same rate that that project is open sourcing it, I feel like for a lot of people, it would have to mean that they're basically forking it because they would have to develop it their own. They have to finish it
Yeah.
their own way, right?
I mean,
Okay.
look, all the big everything is open source that is successful. Yeah, just go fork Ethereum, fork CK rollups. This all stuff is there.
Yeah,
So
I'm not.
yeah,
You're not hearing any.
Mhm.
I'm not against open sourcing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not my point. I was just
You just
wondering
think there
if.
should be you think there should be a time delay just to protect that project
Yeah, I
to
think. Well, I think it's
bring
worthy
it
of
to
a
market,
discussion, or that
right?
that was my point. Yeah, but I'm not
Right.
saying not
I
open
mean,
source it.
I
But
mean,
if you guys
yeah,
don't agree, that's fine.
I
Give
th
them a chance to bring it to market
Right.
before another company just
yeah,
takes it.
but
And
not financed by the community, I would say. I mean, there's VCs and all stuff out there. If you have such a great product and you want to keep it closed source, then get your money from somewhere else. Yeah. Uh, I think for the community, it's super important that what is built with community money needs to be available for the community then also, so that they can just fork it and build their own stuff and develop it further and things like.
so that goes
Okay.
to my original question was, what if it's not? What if the project's code is basically a collage of other open source,
Mhm.
and the thing that they're actually developing with the grant money is, let's say, a song or
Yeah,
some like
like
collection of
like
photographs.
IP stuff.
Right. So then do they have to say that they own it with the community, so the community could use it too, like the song whenever
It's
they want?
difficult. I don't let's say they want to, like you said, they want to purchase music rights or something. I don't even think that this should be something that the community should pay for. Yeah, so if you wanna,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
tough one,
yeah,
right?
if you wanna make
But it's good to bring it up now,
yeah, it's a
right?
good
So
thing. Like, let's say you want to make an art gallery, and you are basically asking the community, okay, give me 200K. I'm buying some art, and then I will sell it later for 400K and make 200K profit from the investment of the community. That's basically not something that we should fund. Yeah.
No, but
Mhm.
what if that project that's doing the art or the music
Mhm.
is basically on Shimmer, and that art or that music is
Mhm.
kind of like NFT that's very relevant to the project becoming
Yeah.
successful, and it's part of the DeFi or whatever, that's bringing
Yes,
value
yes.
to that
I mean,
project.
then I would also go in the direction and say, then this whole thing should also be open source. There shouldn't be any IP rights for them. I mean, you have thousands of artists that produce and they give out their. Yeah, I know it's difficult, but it's
Essentially,
like,
it's difficult. It's
yeah.
like, should it be open source, or is it like the community owns the copyright or the license with the project? Do you know what I mean?
I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, I think that um, it could be. Well, potentially, it makes sense to say that the community could have a discussion with the the people trying to get the money, that the community could have ownership or not have ownership. The problem is that if we go down that path, the legal fees around that whole ownership thing will be ongoing and be a huge ongoing cost.
Mm.
Because that's a discussion that will always be a legal discussion. It's basically copyright, trademark, licensing, and that's just a cluster. So, that would be like
Yeah.
all of a sudden we would be looking at a budget that we would have to we may
Mm.
not be sufficient to actually deal
I
with
mean,
that in itself.
I have really no not
It's a
enough
question like
knowledge there.
part
But
of
like,
me is says, hey, like if you
but how,
develop code,
what project does develop music and asks the IOTA community to fund them? Or I don't know. That's
There's going to be a lot of content projects coming to Shimmer and IOTA,
huge
and
content. Yeah,
yeah,
content
like
coming from everywhere.
let's
Yeah.
yeah, let's say I do a content project and I ask for 10,000 to, put up a website, right? And it's so people can't ask for that.
Mhm.
But if I'm going to put up a website, then I have to hire artists to create art for that website if it's a content project, you know? So I mean that's not code or anything. I mean, or only the code behind the website would be open source, and then the rest of any kind of copyright or IP
Mhm.
is in the domain of the project. The community has no rights to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
would. Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, that's a difficult. It'd be interesting to see how if this is addressed in other ecosystems because
I've
I mean,
never seen. I mean, in the end,
I've never heard of it, but I've never thought of it,
I think it's
frankly.
just like, I mean, if it's great for the community to have such a project and it means success, yeah, give them the money. And if they can't, uh, I mean, if it's not code, if it's about IP stuff, that is, I have no idea. We would need,
Yeah,
I don't
because
know.
if for some chance there was IP that was developed by this
Mhm.
team, I think that in a sense the community should have ownership of it.
Yeah, 'cause I
Um,
don't know why this is coming from left field because
oh, I don't
all the
see it as left
projects,
field. I think
yeah,
it's
all
good
the
No,
to
no,
consider,
no.
right?
yeah, all the
It's a,
projects that I see
yeah.
in the IOTA community is either DeFi, NFT, and then I see like the fans where they're buying clubs, and then I see like Rusty Robots. They're gonna get into music and comics and stuff. So I just assume
It's really a
like
good question because
yeah, like half
it's
the
a
projects.
quagmire, right? Like if TFT goes out and buys clubs and we give them money, right? Um, do we own the club? Do we have ownership in the club? Well, I guess we do because we're going to be part of are we part of the DAO that owns the club? I mean, I
Um,
don't know. Like it's just,
I mean
and then like with you, like you're doing
it
film
yeah.
or creation, right? It's
I
like what
think
happens there, right?
it depends a lot for if if the proposal asks. I mean, you have to break down your budget. Yeah. So if you ask for 100K, and for 20K of this money would you would use for producing stuff where you're later going to have IP rights on it. But the rest of the money you need for other stuff, like I said, developing a website, doing marketing, paying a coder for doing your backend and things like this. Potentially, either then you could say, okay, that just everything that is we don't pay for things that give you an IP that you can market afterwards, or it needs to be, I don't know, it needs to be
Mhm.
owned by the community. Yeah. So let's say, okay, there's like an 80K grant and 30K for this is for stuff that in the end would give the team IP rights that cannot be shared with the community, then potentially this money can't go out. Something like this is quite complicated.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
we go down this. This is something that I've never. It's so crazy, right? Because in all the things that we've studied and read about this stuff, I've not seen it considered. But content creation and who owns the content and if we pay for it, that's really weird because part of what we're saying in the guiding principles and everything like that is does it benefit the wider community, right? So, um,
Yeah,
Mm.
it's kind of gray.
I originally thought that it was if in terms of it does it benefit the community, it was up to the project to say whether they were going to, you know, bring profit back, replenish the ecosystem, the treasury, that it was up to the project. And if they were willing to do that, then they would probably get a higher rating from the committee. But The reason why I'm asking about the content and the IP is because we're saying that the code needs to be open source and delivered to. But see,
Sure.
open sourcing that code, it doesn't mean that the community owns it either. It just means that it's open source.
Yeah,
You know.
that's everybody owns it. Yeah, it's like
Right. Right.
yeah.
But if I developed IP, some kind of content, then you don't want that to be. It's not good for it to be, you know, what is it called? Reusable. What is it like?
Yeah, free
Open license.
Yeah,
open
yeah,
licensed.
right. But I
So
don't think
anybody
that's
can
good
use it,
that's
right? So basically,
right.
yeah, just
But I don't think that going that way for IP is good for the project
no, the
or
only
the
thing that I can see
ecosystem.
from that perspective, it's a really good point, because if something's going to be in this vein, code is code. But if you're like, you make a movie, you make a song or a collection of songs or whatever, right? Or art. Um, if there's going to be ownership or shared ownership of it, then it needs to be with the
Yeah, I think
treasury, if that happens.
I maybe it could be maybe something different. Um, maybe the ownership can stay with the producer, like legally,
Hmm.
but there would be some kind of profit sharing or license payback. So if you make money with this content, um, you have to share. You have to give a fair share to the community. Yeah, you still can own money with it potentially, and you can own the IP. But there is something like in Germany we call it GEMA. So basically, if a radio station plays your song,
Yeah,
you
Yeah, the
you will always
royalties.
get a royalties thing. Yeah,
it's a royalty. Yeah.
and something
Yeah.
similar might be something that you can do with IP. So
Well, it's the
if
same way. It's just the
yeah
way that all of the music business works,
yeah
right?
same
See,
like
so see,
yeah
that makes sense, but then it's like you would have to strike almost a different deal with every
Yeah,
content
that's my
project.
problem. That's
mm,
the concept is easy to get through. The
yeah,
legal
but
agreement of every single
execution
time
is super complex.
is will drain the fund, the treasury. I'm not joking. It literally will drain it. Um,
So no
I've
content
been involved
projects,
with, yeah,
only
it'll
coders, only developers. Wow.
I don't know. I think
Or
this
else,
is
or else it
this
unless we
is
just
could
becomes
come
this
all
up
about
is
with
I
one
loyalties.
think
boilerplate.
this is stuff that
Yeah.
the committee should wrap their head around once they're established. We can't do anything.
This
You
also
can't do
must should be
everything for
something
them.
voted on, right, by the wider committee or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because
Yeah, thanks for bringing
I'm
this up. Now
developing
we got a
yeah,
whole
yeah,
quagmire to go through. Yeah.
yeah. I was just like I think either way, like whatever the community wants and what's fair is probably
Mm,
the right thing to do.
yeah. But
But
I think that's a really good point to bring it up in the forum in the discussions there, and see basically what that's definitely once we publish it in the governance forum, and that's definitely a point we should discuss with a broader audience what they think about this and how this could even be established or not established
Hmm.
or something. I have no, and basically we really have to I try to dig up if I find anything
Yeah.
anywhere in any other grant program that even touched base. I maybe can ask in Bankless, because I mean Bankless is a media DAO. They produce a lot of media. They produce a lot of IP. They have their newsletter
Hmm.
and their radio and all the stuff. I will ask how they handle this. Maybe that
Yeah, I think you
might
should.
be maybe that might be the best option for us to get some suitable answers. Yeah,
yeah, that sounds like a
because
good idea.
yeah, yes, because I mean they have they have IP, they do graphics and stuff like this. They have their logo and branding. They have the YouTube shows and all this stuff. They might have some proper insights in this. Let me
And
check.
also, just in the whole
Yeah.
idea of repaying the treasury, which I've been a proponent of it from day one,
Mm,
but um, having been involved with the project, what I do realize now is that when you're a startup, like you're a startup business, even you built your product, right? But you're still not making money, right? So having the repayment
No,
clause or
yeah.
whatever back to the treasury, like immediately, isn't going to help that startup
The,
survive.
the only thing that you can really do is if projects, if they issue a token, that they give a couple of
Yeah,
tokens but
that's
you
the only way that
can't
it really works. Yeah,
that the only thing that you can produce that don't cost you really money but will potentially give
yeah,
back to the treasury later on once the thing is, but you can't
yeah,
say, okay, you're making 50K revenue a month, give 2K to the community, because basically this can be deal breaker for the whole thing if you want to
yeah,
have, if you pay back fiat or any cash or something like this. It's not feasible, I think. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
how do the treasuries do with projects that launch, that have like an ICO or a token launch? Because then, if they just immediately get a share of the tokens, the treasury could, if
I
it's like
have I
unlocked
have
over a year or
nearly
whatever.
I have not seen any treasury that asks for projects to give them token.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's never stated anywhere. Maybe there might be some deals done behind curtains, but I have never seen any treasury to ask for this replenishing of so basically you give money to projects, they build something and they are successful, and this basically makes the whole process successful. But I have never seen any treasury that has any clause that says, okay, if you are launching a token and then we want 0.005% of your supply. No, that's not
Right,
something that
right,
is done anywhere else. That's again a special IOTA requirement that we are bringing up here, but I haven't seen it nowhere.
right.
It's an interesting requirement, right? And I love the idea that it could help keep the fund evergreen, but it does come with complications,
Yeah.
right? Basically, you scratch my back, right? You know, I- if they could, it could be considered a bribe to get money, right? Um,
Also,
yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
yeah,
That's always the thing. Ooh, wow, they promise us 5% of the tokens.
yeah,
What if they
yeah,
really moon? Wow, our treasury will be so fucking rich because they promises us these
yeah.
tokens. Let's give let's give them something. Let's try. Let's take some risk. Maybe this thing really moons. If we support them a little bit, we get really, really shitty rich for our treasury. That's not something that basically should be really in the mission of the thing. Of course, if they want to give tokens, they're free, and of course you don't say no in the end. But yeah, I think the treasury should rather work on using the tokens they have in a profitable way. Yeah, investing, yield farming, things like this, instead of asking for projects to fund them back, because it's a bit of like you say, it's a bit of a bribery risk there, and it might clear the objectivity of the committee if there is like a big chunk of tokens on the table, to not look so close, and so detailed in some
Hey, by
things.
the way, that just it's so apparent, but have we put that in our guiding principles and a requirement that no team members can receive, I mean, no board members can be,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we
receive
have
any compensation of any
yeah
sorts? I can't remember if we
we
had
have
that in there.
this here. Any attempts of
Okay.
bribery or offer of future payments to committee members will lead to
I
immediate
would say,
cancellation.
why don't
Yeah.
you add future payments or
Or
tokens, maybe?
yeah, payments or I was
Ownership
looking,
or tokens, right?
or advantages or something like this.
But
Could be even they offer them, okay, you can stay 2 months in my villa in Ibiza or something like this.
yes,
But
yeah.
what would be the best word for something like this?
Compensation of any form.
Future payments or
Gifts.
compensations.
of
It's
any
usually
kind,
right.
of any form.
any
Lambos.
form.
Lambos.
Yeah.
The only other thing that do you want to put? Oh, I'm sorry, ownership in there.
Ownership.
I was just thinking, that could be covered by compensation, but like ownership in
Payments.
their company, right? Like, hey, we'll give you some.
Payments, token ownership, or compensations, gifts. Yep.
How would that be covered if they were to like quit being part of the treasury and then all of a sudden they're joining someone they've given money to through the treasury? So they
Yeah, that's a
become
good
hired by
point.
that company.
So basically a backdoor agreement where like, hey, I'm on the committee. Once my committee term's over, I don't re-up, and all of a sudden I receive my compensation, whatever it may be, whether it's ownership, tokens,
I mean, this is
on a villa.
you cannot. It doesn't matter how much text you put in here. You cannot.
Yeah.
You can never absolutely 100% avoid risks like this. It really depends then on the people the community votes in this committee to be trustful enough that they won't do such things. Yeah, you never. There will always be possibilities for such things. I mean, this is human thing. You cannot. Doesn't matter what you put in such a rule thing.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to cheat, they will find a
They
way to
will.
cheat. And being kicked out of the committee is also not a super big risk in if you get offered 500K or something like that. That's like, ugh, doesn't matter what is put in these rules there. The only thing is then if you're KIC'd and doxed, then basically you could put law enforcement behind these people that have, if it ever comes out, sure, then the community or the Tangle Ecosystem Association or somebody would go the legal way and go behind these people. So that's the good thing, that you have people fully KIC'd and have a legal binding contract signed by the committee members, where all those things are also part of the contract that they're like the same thing you sign when you sign up for a job and stuff like this. So there would be potential legal consequences even after 2 years. You figure out that they got a new car from whatever the project that they reviewed once, as they have been a committee member. Then you basically call police and you go the legal way against them. Okie dokie. So, what does everybody think? Should we put this stuff up into the governance forum tomorrow and do some tweets about it and let the community go over it and say everything is shit what you've done the last couple of months here? We want it completely different. I think it's good time
I think we need to put it
just
out there.
yeah, we are kind of circling around ourselves a little bit. Need some fresh opinions there. Need some potential critical opinions, but also some support, because we need to get things moving. Voting is coming closer in Firefly, so stuff can happen, and we don't want to waste more time in waiting and waiting and waiting. I think it's time we can start to do something, and then basically get this thing in front of the people, let them decide if they like it or not. If they don't like it, then somebody else has to come up with anything useful. And if they like it, we're going to continue making good stuff here and putting up a committee and helping our ecosystem to grow. Yeah, so I'll write up a post tomorrow if I have enough time. Maybe I share the draft with with overclock or something, it can go over. But basically, I use this text. I will add the things that we've been talking about today. I made some comments and marks there. I think Asa also was making some notes. I'll add that all, and then we'll put it up.
Yeah, I'll share it with you now after the call.
Amazing, Asa. Thank you a lot. Okay, so
Yeah,
let's do this.
Cool.
I just
Thank you,
wanted to
Asa.
mention a
Mhm.
quick thing as well about that we before we finish the call, because I need to jump into another meeting now in 2 minutes. That we, as you might have seen yesterday, we are planning to start some monthly regional meetings, or we were basically checking if there's interest for them to discuss regulatory matters in different regions. So there is a new channel started here under IOTA Governance called Regulatory Matters. And there you can see there's also some polls where you can vote on your availability for these monthly calls if you wish to attend. The link to the polls is also in the message that Mariana posted in this channel yesterday. So we're planning to start in November with these calls, and basically we want to know, like from in the community, what kind of regulatory issues or like limitations you're seeing in your region, so we can discuss these like together, share each other's experiences.
You know what you didn't ping properly. No, you did ping at here, I think, but that might have been not the best. We should do another round of ping for making the people aware of this thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Where do you suggest we should share? I think it was shared yesterday by Tabata in the announcements. But if you have any suggestions where we should share it for the best visibility,
It's pretty easy.
let me know.
You did this in announcements yesterday, but you probably only. Oh no, she pinged everyone. Okay, so basically everyone should have had this first ping already. Then
Yeah, I
let's
remember
see.
seeing it.
Yeah. Let's see that we get some people in the polls. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can also, since we plan to start them in November, we can maybe do one ping per week to remind people that this poll is ongoing and we're still organizing
Good
the calls.
idea.
Yeah, maybe also let Comstick, they can do some tweet about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also a good idea.
And when you just on the regulatory front, I mean, I don't want to extend this too much, but are we going to be able to talk like anything regulatory, like DAOs in the U.S. versus DAOs in South America versus DAOs in Singapore, that kind of thing, or is that what's on the
I
table?
think to start with, we can exactly. I mean, what kind of like what is going on in your countries with regulation? Like it can be around the DAOs or I don't know here in
SEC
the
or
in the
whatever.
EU.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Here in the EU, the MiCA regulation, for example,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
these kind of things. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. I need to jump into another meeting
right.
now, but I'll
Thank
send you
you.
the notes, Philo, after the meeting, and
Okay, cool.
we'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah. Thank you, Asa. And everyone here,
Thanks.
thanks for joining. We see you again on Thursday at 4 p.m. because at 5 we will have the Bankless, but Bankless it will be a full session about governance, voting, DeFi governance and stuff like this, so it will fit anyway. And then Thursday at 4 we can maybe dive a bit deeper into the candidate nomination process and finish this one so we can also publish that. Okay, everybody.
Cool.
Thanks a lot
All right.
and have a nice evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. See you on Thursday.
Thanks, fellows. You guys.
Bye bye.